So last time I talked about the story that broke me, which was Metamorphosis, and I want to thank a lot of you guys for your very kind comments. You have been very supportive and telling me how you really like the idea of the story, and you've encouraged me to go back and try writing it again. I'm not promising anything, but I didn't expect so many to actually support the story, so you know what? I will only promise to consider it. I'll think on it, see if I really want to try that again. I'm just going to need assistance if I do this because, the original Metamorphosis was kind of something done with assistance, so we'll need to see. But more of that later. I wanted to do something a bit more positive today. Last time I talked about a story that broke me and that I didn't want to return to, but now I want to talk about my most popular story, other than Metamorphosis, that I actually did finish, that I actually have a great deal of pride in. It's called Monster Club. Now, many of you may already know of this story because in one of my videos, and I'll link it up in the upper left-hand corner, I did a live stream where I played through the whole video game of Monster Club. Yes, there is a visual novel of Monster Club that you can play for free, and I'll leave a link to where you can get access to it in the description. Hope that you give it a shot. It's something that me and a friend of mine worked on for a long time, and we had a lot of fun doing it. It's something amazing. It's not like a super long dating sim or something, but it is something that we took a lot of pleasure in working on. So what is Monster Club? Well, it started a long time ago when me and Mika were still friends. Mika wanted to do a story about a family of vampires, and I said, I really don't want to do a family of vampires. That sounds a bit too Twilight-y for my taste. But then I watched a kids movie called Scooby-Doo and the Ghoul School, which is basically where Shaggy, Scooby, and Scrappy become gym teachers at a boarding school for girls, but it turns out all the girls are the daughters of famous movie monsters. Like, you've got a daughter of Dracula, a daughter of the Mummy, a daughter of Frankenstein, a daughter of the werewolf, all that kind of stuff. And it made me think, wow, wait, hold on, what if we did something like that, a family of monsters, not just vampires, but monsters? And Mika warmed up to the idea, so we started designing some of the characters. And a lot of them we tried to give very unique, fun, and creative personalities and outlooks. We tried to give each one kind of their own personal story. Kind of like what Marvel's The Avengers did, where you have each character in the Marvel Avengers movie, each one of them has their own goals and aspirations and desires, and they come clashing together and then working together in Avengers. Kind of the same thing here. This group of young monsters have nowhere to go. They don't have any family to go to. They don't have any home to stay at. So they live in this cabin in the middle of the woods, once owned by a rich man named Solomon, whose ghost still haunts the house but lets them stay there. And now the group is trying to figure out their place in reality and what they should do in the world. Well, everything changes when a young human boy by the name of Abraham shows up at the house. And some people think that I named him Abraham for a biblical reason. No, I named him after Abraham Van Helsing from Dracula, because Abraham Van Helsing was described as sort of a monster expert, so I thought that would work here. Anyway, so Abraham winds up at the house, and the Monster Club, as they call themselves, are deliberating what they want to do with him. Some of them think that he should go because he's a human and they don't welcome humans. But a few of the others, such as Sarah, the Drider, or Arachne, if you'd rather, wants him to stay because, if you think about it, the Monster Club is considering what will happen eventually for them. They want to live among humans. They want to be accepted by society. Abraham could be a good litmus test. If Abraham, a human, can live amongst them and flourish with them and become part of their family, it would prove that they have the potential to integrate into human society. If he can't, if he dies, or if he runs away, all it proves is that they can't join humanity yet and they're still stuck being alone. Abraham decides to help them do this, so he starts trying to live with them. Along the way, he gets to know each of the characters. Sarah is an Arachne. She's a Drider. She's super happy-go-lucky. She's super friendly. She loves everybody. Despite being the scariest one of the group, she wants to give everyone a hug. She makes clothes for the group. In fact, she makes Abraham's clothes. She's a sweetheart. She just wants to be everyone's friend. And she's had it real rough, too. She was part of a freak show in her youth because she was captured and shown off as the Spider Lady. And you'd think that that would be enough to break her, but she tried so hard to be optimistic and positive through that experience, which you can't say for her friend and adoptive sister, Katie, who is a Lamia, or Snake Girl. She was also in that freak show, but she has gained an absolute distaste and hatred for humans, especially male humans, because in her youth, she was attacked and nearly raped by a young man she trusted. So she doesn't trust human men, especially not Abraham, and it takes time for her to learn to trust and accept him. But that trust does grow into something a bit more, and it's kind of fun where that goes. You got Tamil. He's a mummy from literal ancient Egypt, but due to a botched ceremony for his mummification, he has come back 5,000 years later as a blind young mummy. Like, when I say blind, I do mean physically blind. He can't see anything, and his speech abilities are pretty weak. But he still tries to maintain, something of an optimistic personality. I think of him kind of like a jokester, like he tries to play jokes and pranks and laugh off things, but it's all to mask an insecurity about the reality that he doesn't feel he belongs in this time and era. In fact, there's a moment where Abraham asks him, if you could see, would you want to? He actually said, no, not really, because I feel like it would be too much of a shock. By being blind, I can kind of pretend none of this is real. It's like it's all just a dream. Then he goes, oh, so you want to die? No, it's just, I love the Monster Club, but I also miss my family. He's kind of torn, which was a lot of fun to work with there. You got Calypso, who's a mermaid, and I got to play a lot about like how mermaids would work in this world. I even created my own kind of mermaid lore where you think about this. If your eyes get dry, you blink as a reflex, right? You don't have to think about it. It just does it on reflex. If you get an itchy nose, you will sneeze on reflex, that kind of thing. With her, she can walk on land with 2 feet if she's dry, but as soon as her body gets wet, immediately her legs will revert to fins like a reflex because her body wants to revert to that to stay alive. That was kind of an idea I had. She's super shy, super scared around people because she's worried that she'll be caught and sent to a zoo or SeaWorld or something like that. She wants to like keep herself kind of hidden. She doesn't want to speak out. She doesn't want to draw attention to herself. Her dream is to become a doctor. She wants to become a nurse, but she's very nervous around people, so it's kind of a struggle for her. Then you've got Asher. He's not the leader of the group, but he's easily the strongest. He's a vampire, and when I was thinking of him, I was thinking like Alucard from Hellsing. I don't want some prissy, pansy, sparkling vampire. I wanted a legit kind of Dracula. He can turn into bats. He can turn into mist. He can regenerate through shadows. He can but he has all these cool powers, but at the same time, he's incredibly weak to sunlight. He always has to stay in or wear heavy clothing in the sunlight. In fact, he can shapeshift into a smaller version of himself, or into a little girl version of himself like Alucard did, that everyone calls Ashley, so that he can hide under more things when the sun is out. And he goes out at night to feed on blood. He also wears a cross necklace, and people ask me, why did you wear a cross necklace? And I realized later on, oh yeah, why does he wear that? So I wrote it in, why he did. When he got bitten and turned into a vampire, he was wearing the cross necklace, so as he made his change into a vampire, his body grew immune to the cross because he was exposed to it during his reanimation. So he is now a vampire who's immune to the cross. So, and he's dealing with the issue because the vampire that turned him was his own father. His father became a vampire, and now there's this kind of hatred for his own father. It's, as you can kind of see, I've spent a lot of time really diving into these characters, really building them up, building up what they are, and I think the two that really got to me were Michelle and Abraham. Michelle is the leader of the club. She's a werewolf, and she transforms only on the full moon. She doesn't transform when she wants to, and she doesn't transform every night. She only transforms during the full moon, and she loses all sense of control and self when she transforms. She is a sort of mental and emotional wreck because of it. She's a threat to everyone when she transforms, and the only way that they can keep her controlled is when Asher ties her up in the backyard, and then when she breaks loose, like she obviously will, he has to fight her because he's the only one who can withstand her in that state. She's always afraid of who she'll hurt. She's afraid of the pain of transforming. She's afraid of not remembering what happens to her when she's a werewolf, but she still leads the group because she has the leadership skills to help maintain the group order. And she cares about everyone, to the point that she'll sacrifice herself if it means keeping the rest of the group safe. She's recommended on more than one occasion that she either leave or Asher just kill her so that she can't hurt anybody, and none of them want that to happen. But then you also have Abraham, even though he has no powers, even though he's not a monster, even though in fact, it was funny. A lot of fans, as I was writing the story, kept guessing what Abraham secretly was. Like, is he secretly a monster? No, he's not. He's a human. That's the point. Because as a human, he is the hope that the rest of the club has. The club hopes that Abraham can live amongst them in harmony, and therein prove that they can live among humans. And Abraham slowly becomes a very meaningful and important part of the club. He starts making major decisions for the club and starts influencing it in really big ways. And as the story goes on, we see new monsters appear. A new member of the club is added named Annie, who's a little witch. Love her. Loved Annie. In fact, my friend Hannah Hiring, she's the one who designed Annie, so big thanks to her. She's a shy little witch girl from Korea who just wants a big brother, and she finds that in Abraham. We later get to see a totally different group of monsters that call themselves the Farm, and you've got a Minotaur, you've got a Gorgon, you got a fairy, you've got a Goo Girl, because people like Goo Girls, that kind of thing. You got a Centaur. You got all these different monsters that we've gotten to play with. So we had a lot of fun building this up. We even had an anti-monster organization called the Dawnbringers who want to destroy the club, and we see kind of a mini rivalry between them. So the things that I really loved about making this story was I loved building the character interactions. I'm a huge character designer. I love designing character personalities, goals, aspirations. This was a huge project for me, and I loved every minute of it. But there were problems along the way. First of all, when Mika and I broke contact, we were still halfway through the original story, and much like Metamorphosis, I felt a lack of desire to work on the story after she and I broke contact, so it kind of went stagnant for a while, but it was such a popular story, and it meant so much to me, I really tried to push my way through it. Then, out of nowhere, Hannah, my friend, comes forward and says, I'd like to help design and redesign the characters. And so she put her heart and soul into redesigning all the characters. You've probably seen the difference between her work and Mika's work throughout this. And because of her and her commitment to trying to help me, it really brought the story back to life in my heart. Even though she's not a huge fan of Monster Club herself, she hasn't even read the story. She really helped bring it to life for me. Then it got even better when another friend of mine, also named Hannah, but who Hannah and I call Turtle to tell the difference. She's from the Philippines. Very gifted artist. Very wonderful artist. I love her to death. She wanted to make a visual novel. Like an online visual novel, kind of like what a dating sim is. But she wanted to use the Monster Club as the basis. And so she asked me to write the script for a visual novel so that she could make it. We worked together, I think, for a little over a year on this visual novel, and it's not a dating simulator. In fact, the only real choice you make throughout the whole thing is near the end, and you have 3 choices to make, which results in the good ending, the neutral ending, or the bad ending. But the rest is all just telling a story, and for that alone, I think it was very fun. It's kind of a sequel story to the Monster Club where we introduce one more monster, and the club has to figure out what to do with them, which was very entertaining for me to work on. There was a lot that we really got to do with this story, and I think the other problem that I had with the story, there were 2 other major problems that we had with the story. There were 2. And the first one that I had with the story when I was writing it, when I was wrapping it up, the final major problem I had was I didn't know how to end it. And so I kept fighting with myself how I wanted to end it, because deep down in my heart I didn't want it to end. I wanted to see the Monster Club go on more adventures. I wanted to see them do more things, interact with more stuff. But I realized, I've reached the zenith. I've reached the end. I need to figure out a way to wrap it up here. And so I finally found a way. But the way I did it, it was really half-assed. It was kind of this cop-out kind of, the adventure could continue. And a lot of my fans said, this didn't feel right. So I literally had to go back and go, nope, you're right. I messed up. I didn't do it well. I can do it better. So I wrote a better one. And I think people were more satisfied with that. And people have asked me to do a sequel. I'm not planning a sequel right now. The sequel right now is the visual novel. Okay, the secret right now is the visual novel that we worked on. That's the only one that we have right now. Now, Turtle and I, or Miss Valdiabella, that's her last name, Valdiabella, what a name, by the way. She has hinted that she'd like to work on another visual novel with the Monster Club, but neither of us have the time right now, so we don't know when or if we'll get to do that, which is sad. We'll let you know if that changes. The other major problem I had with writing, and this was probably the biggest problem, the more characters you add, the harder it becomes to balance all of them. And that's what it turned out. I mean, think about it. You've got Abraham, you got Solomon, you got Sarah, you got Tamil, you got Calypso, you got Asher, you got Michelle, you got Katie, you got Sarah, I already said Sarah, sorry. You got David, you got Penn, you got Annie, you got all these characters. Hell, I'm even forgetting some names right now. I know it. You've got we had almost over 12 characters at one point. It's very hard to balance all those characters at one time, and that became a struggle, figuring out how I was going to balance and work with all these characters, make them all unique from one another without too much overlap. It became a struggle, and a lot of my fans even pointed out, it feels like there are too many characters going on at once. So Monster Club was both one of my greatest successes, a story that I actually finished, and I'm very proud of, and I've had a visual novel made about it, I've had several pieces of art made for the characters, but it was also one of the hardest stories to work on for me because, for one, my partner in crime who was helping me work on it bailed out, and also because I overburdened myself with a lot of characters. I got too ambitious, I got too excited, and thus it turned into a bigger thing than I expected. But Monster Club is one of those stories that I don't think I'll ever be able to replicate. I would love to go back and rework it, like rewrite it just a little bit to kind of perfect it, like work out some of the problems that I have with it. Even Hannah has talked about me doing that. And she's even started redesigning some of the art that she's done for the Monster Club, which I really appreciate her doing. But, yeah, it's been a lot of fun looking back on Monster Club. I actually reread it from time to time and cringe a little at some of my lesser writing capability. If you want to read the story yourself, the full story, I'll leave a link in the description that you can check it out. Like, lots of links in the description, guys. Just check those out. And if you want to play the visual novel, I do play through it in a live stream on my channel. Again, link is in the description for you to check that out if you want to watch me play through it. Or if you'd like to play through it yourself and find your own ending, you can go download it yourself. But I hope you like this story sharing time. I hope you enjoyed learning about the Monster Club. This was probably my most successful story and my second most popular besides Metamorphosis, for reasons that, well, I think one thing that I'm proud about is if Metamorphosis was only super popular because of a crowd that was interested in the fetishization of genderbender, which is sad because that was never my goal. But if that is the only reason they liked it, then I feel bad that it became popular for that reason. But Monster Club, I can proudly say, I don't see how you could get a fetishization from that. I think it did become popular because people liked the characters, liked the story, and enjoyed where it was going. So for that reason alone, I feel like Monster Club is probably my most successful story. I wish that my other stories could be half as successful. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and as always, I will see you in my next video. Take care.